Okay, let's talk about IVF. It is a tool for writing effective summary sentences. So what does that mean? The I stands for identify. So you have to identify the topic of the lesson or the source, because you might be asked to do it about an article or a video, for example. V stands for selecting an action verb that pairs well with the I, the identifier. So examples of verbs could be explains, describes, tells, evaluates. You are not going to use a helping verb. So no is, are, was. And then F stands for finish. You're going to finish your thought. You're going to include details about the topic. You've been given an IVF framework for your notebook that looks like this. It gives you a guide for how to do this process, okay? So identify the topic, you choose a verb. That list of verbs are not the only ones. You just should not be choosing helping verbs. So no is, no was, no are, nothing like that. And then you finish by including some details. And what I'm requiring is that you underline 2 or more important vocabulary words that you have included in your IVF. So this is making you think about what kinds of vocabulary you should be including. Then you use the framework to write it as a sentence or more than one sentence, depending how you finish yours, okay? So it should be in sentences. You should never just have it as that framework. And here's the rubric that is going to be used to grade it. And you also have a copy of this in your notebook. So you're going to be looking for identifying the topic, choosing an action verb, and then finishing the thought with 2 or more vocabulary words underlined and 2 or more details included. And then the structure should be sentence format. It should not be really short. It also shouldn't be a run-on, so you could divide it into more than one sentence if needed. So let's look at some good examples so you can see what I'm talking about. Say, for example, we did a lesson about the particles in the states of matter. And then you were given a question. The question said, choose one state of matter and explain it. Okay, so we looked at a sample of copper in this activity. So I identified what I'm going to talk about, the solid sample of copper. I chose the verb illustrates for this one. And then I'm just going to write my ideas. How could I finish it? What am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about that particles are close together. I'm going to talk about definite shape. I'm going to talk about definite volume. Now I take that tool and I use it to write it in sentence format. So here's an example. The solid sample of copper we examined illustrates how the particles in a solid are close together, have definite shape, and have definite volume. And I underlined, remember, a minimum of 2, but I underlined some vocabulary words that are relevant and content specific. Okay. Let's look at another example. We did a lesson about lab safety. All right. Okay, and here is our question. What are some lab safety procedures? So I've identified a topic, lab safety. I'm going to choose a verb. In this case, I'm going to choose identifies. And I'm going to put some ideas that I could finish my thoughts with. Tying your hair back, wearing goggles, no loose clothing. Remember, I need at least 2 details, and I need to think about, I need at least 2 vocabulary words. So now I'm going to take that framework and I'm going to write it in sentence format. So I have lab safety rules identify procedures we must follow. We should always wear goggles, tie hair back, and avoid loose clothing. Notice I split this into 2 sentences, which in this case makes more sense for me writing it anyway. So an IVF does not have to be one single sentence. It can be multiple sentences, but it should be a short summary. Should not be writing a paragraph. Okay, and then you could see I underlined the important vocabulary tying back to the question and the content. Now, you do not have to start with the framework. It's just an option. So let's try an example without putting notes in the framework. So the next example, we did a lesson about the importance of skin. So you can look at the framework and write the IVF. Eventually, you should be able to do this without even looking at the framework, but we have the guide here. So our question is, why is skin important? So I have to identify the topic, I have to choose a verb, I have to finish the thought with 2 details minimum and 2 vocabulary words. So let's see what I have. Skin protects our body by keeping out germs, regulating our body temperature, and preventing water loss. You can see I have the identify, skin, verb, protect. And then I finish it. I do have 2 details, at least I have 3, and I do have 2 vocabulary words, at least underline, I have 3. So important things to remember. You have to underline at least 2 important vocabulary words or concepts. You have to write it in sentence format. You have to identify the topic, choose an action verb, and include at least 2 details. And there you have the IVF strategy. So we can use this as exit tickets, summarizing a source like an article or a video, or hey, real quick, what was today's lesson about? Okay, I hope it helps.